Can we do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Orth.
Here.
Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We're not officially a commissioner yet, so
I still
pass.
am here.
Sorry. I was looking at the sign. Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
I got to be resworn in.
Commissioner Huff.
Here.
Commissioner McCowan.
Here.
Commissioner Rosenberg.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to ask for public expression. Anyone that wants to speak under public expression, please come forward, state your name for the record. Seeing no one, we're going on to other business. And this is the announcement of appointments and oath, then the oath of office. So these will be the 2019 city representatives. And it will be for Jerry Gonzalez and Will Lee. And Jerry, you are the regular city representative, and Will Lee, you are the alternate, correct?
Yes.
All righty. Can we conduct the oath of office? Gentlemen, you want to stand and raise your right hands?
Oh, okay. Sure, just to say, I, Gerardo Gonzalez, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties which I am about to enter.
Good job.
Great.
Welcome back, Jerry.
I, Will Lee, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties which I am about to enter.
Wonderful.
He's here. Okay, good. I'll move back then.
Come on up, Scott. We're playing musical chairs.
Oh, we gotta, yeah.
And clerk, please note.
Count to carry.
She signed it.
Oh.
Don't forget to sign the other one, too.
Pardon?
Don't forget to sign that other one, too.
I signed two.
Welcome. Copies for
Morning.
to your new chair.
Clerk, make sure I've signed the correct copies. I don't know if I signed both.
I gotcha.
Oh, okay.
Maybe they're both
Okay.
together.
And please note, Commissioner Ignacio is now here, and alternate Commissioner Lee will be back down at the table.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah.
It was, I took off a half hour earlier, and there's still quite a bit of county road issues, but the county roads department's doing a really good job keeping it at least one lane open right now, so.
And also, welcome back to Commissioner Gonzalez. We had already called for public expression, but Chief, do you have some public expression, or? No, I'm just gonna be watching today. Oh, okay, thank you so much. All righty, we're going to move forward to appointments to committees. The agenda item says the chair will review and appoint commissioners to the executive and policies and procedures committees as necessary due to the late appointments of the city regular and alter representatives. Do I have input from any of you as to where you would like to serve? No? Okay. I think it's really important, although I believe, who got appointed last meeting? Because we have 2 people for policies and procedures we need to appoint.
So for the executive committee, it's usually the chair, the vice chair, and the treasurer, or a third commissioner is appointed by the chair. So we tentatively had Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Commissioner Orth, and Commissioner Ignacio. And then for policies and procedures, was tentatively Commissioners McCowan and Rosenberg. And then we were waiting for a third.
Okay. I'd like to talk about executive committee in just a moment, but would there be an individual that would like to serve on policies and procedures?
I can help out if we need to.
Okay, you're appointed. Thank you. And who would be our chair, or is that decided among that committee at the first
Usually-
meeting, or?
It is usually decided at the first meeting
Okay.
of the committee.
All righty. Then for executive committee, we do not have the treasurer on.
You
And,
have 3 already, though.
huh?
You have 3.
Yes, because it was pointed out, I believe, at the last meeting that you have a county representative, a city, and then a public should be on the executive committee. I get a little concerned because Jerry is our treasurer, and many times we go into a lot of detail. So I guess Jerry and I will need to go over any concerns he has of the financials, and I'll bring that forward to the executive committee. All righty, moving on to the consent calendar. We have approval of the February 4th, 2019 regular meeting summary. And then B is approval of the February 2019 claims and financial reports. Commissioners, comment?
I'd like to abstain from the minutes from February since I wasn't here.
Okay. Please note that, clerk.
So noted, thank you.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Seconded.
So we have a motion on the floor. Any further comment? Seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McCowan,
Yes.
Commissioner Huff,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes, with the
Commissioner
notice.
abstaining, Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner Orth,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I did want to note that there was an email that went out, and it was from the 2015 Cal LAFCO, and it was about their survey involving LAFCO's budgets for, actually, the time the survey was 2015-16, and I believe the commission asked for that at the last meeting, and I brought a copy, actually for myself. I didn't know if we were going to further discuss it, but it would be important, maybe we can make copies or something during the break, and I can just pass these out, so each commissioner has a copy. Okay, now we're going to move to the public hearing item. And this is a public hearing for the Fort Bragg Rural Fire Protection District Municipal Service Review, the MSR, and Sphere of Influence, SOI, update. So we will begin the public hearing process by asking, has proper notice been given?
It has.
Okay. Now, just for everyone, the public hearing process, the staff will give their report and add any comments further that they need to make. Then it'll be to the commission to ask questions. Commissioners can also make statements about the document itself. Then we will go for public comment. After public comment, it comes back, staff can respond to the public comment, commissioners can as well, and then we'll move forward, closing the public hearing before we entertain any motions. So let us go forward. Can we please have your report?
Thank you, Chair Brown. So this is a public hearing to consider the Fort Bragg Rural Fire Protection District Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence update. We did hold a workshop with the commission on February 4th to receive comments. Those comments have been detailed in the staff report, which starts on page 16 of your packet. The comments are enumerated 1 through 11, and then were also addressed further down in the staff report on page 17. Wanted to note that, in particular regarding the financials, that we do have the most up-to-date audit information in the document. So we have added a determination asking for updated audits by the end of this fiscal year. We are recommending that the Commission adopt a coterminous sphere, which is to affirm the existing sphere of influence for the district and to find the report exempt from CEQA. I don't have any further presentation, and I'm happy to address comments.
Commissioners? Commissioner Ward.
I believe last month we talked about the board of directors, and I think the point I was trying to make was not to delete the whole schedule, but just to take out the names. I think the whole schedule was deleted, wasn't it?
It was. We did take the table out. That was our.
Yeah, I just didn't want the names in there because it could change every 2 years or whatever. I know in the past we just showed the board of director and what their term was and when it expired, but we didn't name a name.
Okay, thank you.
Other than that, it was very well written. Thank you. Good job.
Thanks.
I agree with you, Commissioner. Commissioners, any other comment, questions? Commissioner Orth?
Yes, under powers, the fire district is listing all the services they provide. Under LAFCO, when we talk about power, it's adopting like whether you're a fire district providing emergency services. So I have no problem with I think it tells the public exactly what they're doing. But I wonder if we should call it a power versus a service.
Didn't we say a joint power?
Okay, Commissioner McCowan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this isn't a change for today, but it's clarifying future direction. The sixth bullet point down, request for the future, review fire authority, including Fort Bragg Rural Fire Protection District and the City of Fort Bragg to capture all finances of fire authority in one document.
Could you note the page on that, please?
Huh?
Could you note the page that you're referring to,
It's
please?
6 of 89.
Thank you.
Workshop items. And then the EO response is the fire authority is the joint powers authority, and LAFCO does not have direct oversight into JPAs. However, LAFCO has direct oversight of the district and of the city, which are the two halves of the JPA for fire service. So I think I believe the direction of the commission was that in the future, the review of the district and the city fire service would be in one document. Although we have no authority over the JPA, we do over the district as it relates to fire service and the city as it relates to fire service. And I think we get the complete picture if we include all of that in one document instead of here we're taking a bite at half of the apple. So, but it's up to the commission. But I think I may have raised that point, and that was my intent, then it gives a fuller picture of the fire service for that area.
I remember John bringing that up. I agree with that.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
I just would like the statement that John had brought up also put in there, either in some sort of bullet point or whatever, that we, while we don't have that authority, that should be in there. That I think that's important to note for the public.
Okay. Commissioner Orth.
Yes, I would also like to thank the district. One of the LAFCO actions we've taken in between these MSRs is an annexation of northern properties. And in the interim, they have since built a new, they've expanded a property to include a fire station, giving those new annexed territory the 5-mile radius that gives them the better insurance rate. So I think that was a very responsible way to handle both taking and requesting an annexation and then providing a higher level of service, which is what this commission had to determine, as we remember, Westport was a little upset that they were going to lose some potential payers into their volunteer fire district through this annexation, but our decision needs to be who can provide the better level of service. And I just wanted to point that out if this comes up in future. I don't think we can require a fire district when they annex put in a fire station, but this is exactly what Fort Bragg did, and I just want to give them accolades for doing so.
Okay. Staff?
I would like to ask a question kind of off of Commissioner McCowan's comments. We do have the Ukiah Valley Fire Protection District MSR and SOI update that we have initiated and are starting work on. The city of Ukiah is not scheduled for at least 2 years while they do their general plan update, so that might be something we need to discuss in the future, near future.
Then maybe we should have it on the next agenda. You agree, Commissioner?
Absolutely, and invite the city and the district to attend if they wish.
So we might give a notification. Okay. So now, any more questions or statements, commissioners? Seeing none, we'll go to public comment. This is a time for the public comment on the document before us. Seeing no one come forward, it's back to the commission. Any final comment by staff?
None, no, thank you.
Okay, commissioners, any final comment? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt.
I'll second.
So we have a motion for adoption of the Fort Bragg Rural Fire Protection District MSR SOI update. And we have a motion and a second. Did you get that, clerk?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Uma, I saw you were really not supposed to go forward under the procedures, but if you have a final comment, please state it.
Just a point of clarification, does that include the exemption, or will that be a second motion?
The exemption for...
Well, it was the
The CEQA
comment.
exemption, recommendation
Oh, okay.
number one.
That includes that.
Okay, there's agreement. Please get that in the minutes so it'll be clear. Okay, clerk, can you conduct the roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Commissioner McCowan?
Yes.
Commissioner Huff?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Yes.
Commissioner Orth?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving forward, we're going to go to a workshop item. And this is a workshop on the preliminary draft budget and work plan for 2019-20. So staff, would you like to do the presentation, please?
Thank you. We brought this item forward for preliminary discussion in our February meeting. During that time, the direction and comments from the commission were to bring forward for consideration a proposed change to our fiscal policy, which is policy 5.1.5, to reduce the legal reserves from 50,000 to 35,000. That has been included in your agenda packet as item 7A, I believe. Other comments were to keep the apportionment fees consistent with this fiscal year at 135,000 and utilizing that 15,000 from legal reserves to help meet revenue needs for this next fiscal year. And finally, to utilize cost recovery for public and agency inquiries, developing a policy or fee schedule line item if necessary. I'm going to move down to the expenses. This is on page 67 of your agenda packet. There is a slight increase from the numbers that were brought forward last month, and those are to adjust for late notices. There will be an increase in the CSDA membership of approximately 5%, and also we received a an estimate from the county auditor's office for the A87 costs of approximately $428. So those numbers do increase our budget somewhat to $160,248. In looking through the numbers, as I developed this staff report, we had anticipated $6,300 in cash balance rolling from this fiscal year into next fiscal year. That will actually be, it's not actually a cash balance, it is a under budget. We anticipate not utilizing $6,300 of this fiscal year budget. However, we had anticipated pulling that from reserves, so it's not actually a cash balance to move forward. For this fiscal year, 18-19, we had anticipated using about $7,300 from the reserves budget, from the reserves to balance our budget. So if we do that, we'll be approximately $9,000 under our $25,000 reserve threshold, and that's moving into this next fiscal year. On page 68, there's the table at the bottom that kind of lines out the numbers at proposed apportionment fees of $135,000, $140,000, and $150,000, and the associated impacts to the reserves for dipping into reserves to balance that budget. So just want to note, if we dip into the reserves this year as anticipated, we will be below the 25% threshold by as much as $9,000. Those are the only changes to the budget from last month, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Ward, our treasurer.
On page 70, attachment 1, is the cash correct at 41,406? Is that your estimate?
These numbers should be updated based on the information that you received from the auditor's office.
Yeah, I talked to the auditor's office this morning. We have $36,500 in the account.
Okay, then that would be adjusted.
So I don't think we have, I think that'll cover our deficit in the reserve.
Okay, great.
Could you repeat that number, please?
Well, she gave me a number of $36,560.38.
Thank you.
And we still have $144 accounts receivable. Some district hasn't paid yet. And I would recommend that we probably remove $35,000 from the account, leave at least $1,500 in the account.
Okay. Commissioner Orth?
Yes, anticipating that the county is going to maintain Service Area 3 from direction from the Board of Supervisors. It's on our agenda later. LAFCO will have to, I believe, approve a power as they pick up any powers within Service Area 3, I believe. Is that correct?
I have posed that question to our council and have not heard back yet.
Well, I'm sort of anticipating that we will need to, as the county wishes to adopt a specific power, they need to come through LAFCO to engage that power. That's supposed to be the process when the law changed. Special districts, I think both independent and dependent, are required to come to LAFCO and then engage a process to pick up a particular power. As you see, Service Area 3, from the information, can do anything a special district can do. But that's regulated by us, in that we have to approve a power as they adopt it to roll that out to the public. And I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that's going to be the process that we're looking at. So the reason I'm mentioning this is I'm thinking of incremental, when we leave our budget request to the three funders, we're maintaining the same level for quite a few years now, and I kind of remember doing that in Brook Trails for 10 years and then getting caught with needing to do a major increase. So I would support looking at the 140 instead of the 135,000 budget. On page 68, of the 689, you will find that they do list out requesting 135,000, 140, and 150. And I think it might be reasonable at this time to look at the 140. It'll maintain a little bit better reserve. Did I see a notice from our attorney that he recommended the 50,000 legal?
That was the initial recommendation from him when we adopted that policy. Yes.
So again, I'm just thinking that maybe we're going a little too far in reducing our reserve. And maybe it would, because I would look more at not putting it into legal reserve, but into our operational reserve, just because we might anticipate some other activity that's maybe on the horizon.
Commissioner Rosenberg.
I would concur with Commissioner Orth. I think that we're cutting it much too close to the bone. And since the state last year came up with things that we had to do, and there was no funding to do them, I think being this close to using our reserves and lowering our legal reserves, I think is potentially dangerous for us. And I just feel very uncomfortable with such a tight budget.
Commissioner McCowan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, LAFCO is a little different than when you're planning a budget for a city, a county, a district, or a lot of other entities where we're all subject to the vagaries of the economy, and a collapse in the economy strikes directly at the revenue that we receive. In this situation, we have a captive audience. We send them a bill, they're required to pay. So I think it's balancing all the different factors. To this point, the Commission has tended to lean in favor of not extracting more money from the districts, the cities, and the county than what we actually need to do our business. I think our reserves may still be a little too high. In fact, I would suggest that we go ahead and take the legal fees reserve down to 20,000. It's never been touched since inception. If there were to be a lawsuit and a need for those funds, these things don't go from $0 to $50,000 overnight. They tend to be any lawsuit that would seriously draw on those reserves would likely be a multi-year affair, and we could make adjustments going forward as necessary to raise whatever we thought was appropriate from the cities, districts, and counties. So I don't think there's any risk involved whatsoever in having a budget that is lean and geared towards having enough funds to accomplish the work that needs to be done in the current fiscal year. But there's no need to build up a reserve and sit on it, given the way that financing for LAFCO is structured.
Okay. Comment to Commissioner McCowan's comment. Commissioner Orth.
Yes, my concern was if Service Area 3 is to do what I think it can do, whether the county should just pay an application fee to go through that, pick up the power process, or whether we're going to absorb that cost as we do when we do the MSRs for everyone but the cities who have more complex MSR process generally. So I'm just, if the county's willing to pick up any charges that we can then charge as fees versus our working with the county, then I have no problem with the current budget proposal.
Commissioner McCowan.
And I would only add, you're anticipating a problem that doesn't yet exist, and
Yes, that's right.
we'll know more after we have a legal opinion and know the county's intentions as well.
Commissioner Ward.
Well, at our executive committee back in January, February, whatever it was, we talked about maintaining the 135 this year and then even though we felt it was a little tight. I was under the impression we would look at it for next year. I believe with the additional information we have today, I don't think we're in as much dire straits as we were prior to this. I would like to hear another recap of where we're going to end up at the end of 2018-19. Because the information here, I think, needs to be updated.
Will be about $6,300 under budget this year.
Under budget. That will come out of the reserves.
We anticipate, when we adopted the 17-18 budget, we had anticipated withdrawing about $7,300 from reserves to meet the needs of meet the operational expenses. If we're 6,300, then we should only have to dip into, if we're under budget 6,300, we should only have to dip into the reserves about $1,000, $1,500 this year.
And our next agenda item is to reduce legal fees from 50 to 35, which would cover it.
That is, yes, up for consideration, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Commissioner?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Commissioner Ward. I think in light of what Commissioner Worth said, I also agree. I don't want to be kind of like when we raise water rates. We have folks that don't want to raise them for several years, and then they put the hit on you. As a city, I would hate not to get a raise and all of a sudden get a big hit down the road. I'd rather see incremental. So again, following through with what Commissioner Ward said, we look forward, but I agree with him for this year.
Any other comment? Does public have comment? You are public. Okay. So, where do you want to go from here on this item?
Well, I'd like to make sure we're going to approve the next item because we need the 15,000 to cover our deficit.
Can we table this? Are we allowed to table this item pending the next item coming up, since it has an impact on this one?
I think we can direct staff after that comment, after we go to 7A. So we'll go forward on the agenda. And actually, it's a workshop item, so going back, it's not an issue.
Right.
But we'll go to 7A, the proposed amendment to the financial reserves policy. But can I just say one other thing? Tony has brought up a point that we need to hear from our lawyer on. How long ago did you submit that request?
About a week ago, but I believe he was on, he was gone. So he just came back
Okay.
about midweek last week.
Okay, and it might also be prudent, we will probably have county council in here a little bit later, and I think it's important we raise that issue so we don't go down the road and have a lot of opposition to each other's opinions,
Okay.
okay? As long as the commission agrees, I think it's important to communicate and keep the line of communication open. So now we are on 7A. So staff, you want to present your report on this?
Sure. This is this was added to the agenda for consideration based on Commissioner McCowan's comments from last month. So this proposes revising the 50,000 legal reserve to 35,000. To note that number, the original 50,000 number came as a recommendation from our county council, and he indicated that is approximately 1 year's worth of a CEQA lawsuit in particular. Just to go through as a reminder for the survey that we did of other LAFCOs, their reserve policies range from 10 to 20% of annual operating budgets. And then some LAFCOs also maintain a separate reserve for legal reserves that range from $50,000 to $100,000. So that is in your staff report on page 73. I did put a minimum balance per policy based on our current fiscal year budget and the proposed budget. So that is before you, and then the draft language is in the resolution on page 74 of your packet.
Excuse me. What page was that on in the survey?
I did not include the survey. That was just itself. Those were the numbers that came out of our unofficial survey, and that's on page 73, about middle of the page.
On the document itself? The
Yeah,
agenda item
correct.
itself?
Correct, yes. When we were developing the policy in 2017, we reached out to LAFCOs, and these were the gist of the responses.
Yeah, all righty. Commissioner Ward?
Well, I would recommend that we approve the resolution, but as far as going down to 20,000, I'd like to look at that maybe next year. But I think I feel comfortable going from 50 to 35 this year.
A motion?
Response, commissioners? Commissioner Orth?
Just a question. I know there was a public document request that came through the email, just asking the emails of commissioners. That's not a legal matter? That's just a public request for information?
That was a public records request through the county counsel's office.
Okay. So it doesn't show anticipated legal matter?
Not at this time.
Okay.
But PRAs can burn up a lot of staff time, which includes financial obligations in a proposed budget. And the Eel Russian River Commission found that out. Yeah. So, Commissioner Huff.
Question, the 35, dropping the legal reserves to 35,000, that was a little before my time. What was the justification for 35 versus 40 or?
It was a recommendation from Commissioner McCowan.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Hang on, guys. Commissioner McCowan.
The thought was that since we've established the legal reserve at 50,000, we've never had to draw on it, and that rather than hold money that we've collected from the cities, districts, and county, we should operate a little closer to what our actual need is. It's not that hard to make adjustments upward to raise the apportionment if necessary. So that was the general rationale behind it, not have reserves that might be too high.
Right.
And at one time we did, historically. We had quite a bit of money in reserves.
I think it might have been more than a year's operating costs.
Yes. And so the commission was very adamant that we try to get back down to where we should be instead of charging higher fees to all the districts, cities, county. So anyway, someone else. Oh.
I still think that we're getting awfully close to the bone. And my recommendation would be, yes, to reduce the reserve, but not below 40. And I would certainly increase the amount of money we collect from the agencies, the cities, and the county to 140. I think balancing it would be a much more prudent thing to do, considering the amount of unknowns and the fact that one CEQA would put us in an awful hole, and the fact that we might have things coming up that might happen. So I really think we should do that balancing act.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to get a clarification from staff that we did receive a report from legal that it should be 50,000. Did I hear that earlier today?
When we were developing this policy, we reached out to council and requested his thoughts on an adequate legal reserve, and that was his response, 50,000.
And what was the timeline on that? Was that in the last month or?
2017.
2017, okay. All right, Commissioner McCowan suggested that we should get an opinion from legal, 50,000 at the time. But now I'm understanding that was 2017. I would support Commissioner Rosenberg's idea of staying at 40,000 in the reserve for legal, and I would also support the $140,000 increase.
Commissioner McCowan?
So, first of all, the legal opinion that I referred to is the one that staff has requested regarding what would be required if the county sought to activate various powers for Legal Services Area 3. It had nothing to do with his opinion of what the legal reserve should be. An attorney will always say the legal reserve should be high. That's billable hours. So I do think we had this discussion of the 135, the 140, and lowering the reserve, legal reserve to 35. We had this on the budget discussion, and we deferred action on the budget pending action here to make sure we actually lowered the legal reserve to provide the funding for the budget. And it's been stated, we revisit this every year. We'll certainly revisit it next year. We'll probably have something similar to the same discussion again. But for this year, I would move that we adopt the LAFCO resolution amending policy 5.1.5 to reduce the legal reserve amount to $35,000.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion with a recommended motion as stated by Commissioner McCowan. We have a second by Commissioner Ward. We do have comment. Commissioner Orth?
Yes, I have no problem with the motion in that, and I'll go back to an earlier comment at our last commission meeting by Commissioner McCowan, which is that legal issues take a long time to bill. So we will have time, if we get a legal issue, this should be sufficient to do an initial bill, but our budget would be, we'd have time in our budgeting process in the following year based upon how legal usually flows. It's not something that's a slam dunk. You're going to get billed the moment you get a legal issue. It's going to take some time.
Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, 2 points. I'm going on my 19th year of LAFCO, and we've not had a lawsuit, so that's a good thing. I hope another 19 years we go on with another. Second of all, I believe we need the reduction in the resolution in order to meet our 18-19 budget, but I will forewarn the commission as well as the public that I think next year we will be going up. I believe that we are too close to it, but I made a commitment to maintain this. I'm proud to maintain our fees for the last 5-6 years within the 120 to 135, and it is tough for the other districts and the cities as well as the county. So, but forewarn, next year I think we're going to be looking at raising our budget. If we can keep it maintained this year, I appreciate that.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
I again concur with Commissioner Ward, and again, looking forward, an incremental increase would be prudent, so.
Okay. Seeing no other comment, I don't know the public would like to speak. Not seeing the public come forward. You're the only one. We do have a motion on the floor. So everyone understand the motion? We'll have the clerk do roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Orth?
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Huff?
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Voting all aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now, thank all of you for the great discussion we've had. Now we're going back up to 6A. So we've gone over this. Now we just need to give staff direction.
So it's my understanding that we will have a small positive at the end of this fiscal year with the 15,000. I mean, we won't, or will we actually transfer 15,000 into our general account, or just transfer what we actually need to take out?
No, the 15,000 would stay in our reserves account until we need to draw upon it.
Okay.
I anticipate that we may need to draw down about $1,500 from our reserves, but we wouldn't do that until we need it at the end of the fiscal year.
So I can give a report in July with what our actual reserves came out. And they may not be $15,000 less.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and when we're ready for a motion, we do have a recommendation. And we do need to begin the process through the notice of a public hearing for the proposed draft budget and work plan. So I'd like to entertain a motion from the commission. Supervisor McCowan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we direct staff to notice a public hearing for the proposed draft budget and work plan for fiscal year 2018-19 for April 1st, 2019.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Commissioners, any comment to the motion?
I appreciate the commissioner's comments that next year we will probably do an increase. And I think that's good enough for me.
Yes.
May I just get clarity for the motion? That's to keep the apportionment fees at $135,000 and the budget numbered at $160,248.
Correct.
Thank you.
We didn't do the roll call vote, did we? Not yet. Maker of the motion and the second agree with the statement?
Yes.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner, we'll go this way. Orth?
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Huff?
Yes.
Commissioner McCowan?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move forward. Have we, county council's going to be coming in?
Yeah, we're gonna text her, I think. We're gonna text her.
I did just text her if you want to take a 5-minute break maybe to give her time.
Sure. 5-minute break.
Second session. Please make sure your microphones are off before you chit chat.
And I want to apologize, we were having lively conversation. Okay, we're back in session. And we are on agenda item 7B. And this has to do with the CSA 3. And it is an item that we entertained at the last meeting and delayed any vote. We tabled it until we could hear back from the County of Mendocino. And we do have our county council here along with our CEO. Do you want to do the introduction, staff, and then we'll ask the county to come forward?
Sure, thank you. Just very briefly, this is a follow-up from our last month's meeting. The County Board of Supervisors met and discussed this item on February 5th and 26th. A memo from County Council for the February 26th board meeting is included in your agenda packet on page 77. Additionally, County Council provided a letter to the commission this morning, and you each should have a copy of that. And just as a reminder, we are past the 90-day requirement from the State Controller's Office to take some action on this, whether it's to decide it is not active or that it is active, an active district, and to coordinate with the State Controller's Office. I don't have anything further to add at this time.
Commissioners, do you have any question of staff, or should we go to County Council? Commissioner Ward.
How do we, excuse me, how do we activate it? Is it our responsibility to activate it?
So I have asked that question of our legal counsel to see what would be.
You got an answer?
Not yet. What would be required to activate any specific powers of the CSA, and we'll be working with County Council on that as well. But I look forward to an update from County Council and the CEO.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McCowan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before we hear from County Council on the legalities involved, the board did direct that funds be, that staff, county staff, come back to the Board of Supervisors with an item that would transfer funds into CSA 3, which arguably would thereby activate it or at least take it out of the inactive status.
Good.
All right. Did you want, okay. County Council.
Thank you, through Chair Brown. And my apologies for the lateness of this letter. There's a little miscommunication of who the letter was coming from, so I found out pretty much Friday at 5 that it would be coming from me, which seemed like a good idea because of the fact that the chair of the Board of Supervisors is now also the chair of the commission. So although this is a letter directed by the Board of Supervisors, it seemed appropriate for me to convey that information. So just a couple of comments. In looking at the mandate itself by the State Controller's Office, this is a mandate without consequences. I mean, there's nothing built in terms of what the punishment or what you're not doing right. And I added the analysis on talking about the purpose of the bill, so you could see there are many statutes in the government code that have been changed over the last 10 years or so, or even further back, looking at special districts and the problems with the fact that there is no oversight, the fact that they're perhaps not following through on their audits and not being looked at for those. So this was, in everything you read about it, a purpose of, again, shedding light on the special districts that are not running through like a county auditor, which are not going through the county auditor, and that we've lost track of. So some of it was to shut those districts down or to shed light on them on whether they're should be going forward or not. I have spoken to other county councils. As it turned out, many of the ones that were inactive happened to be these county service districts. So in speaking to my cohorts in terms of how they see it, they interpret it the same way I do, and that is if the idea is that you want to utilize this, you just need to basically make it active. In this situation, we're actually further ahead than many of the counties in terms of the 90-day notice, so they're not having this sort of time crunch. It's unfortunate, as I said to my own board, our auditor's office sent in a letter without speaking really to the executive office and said that it had never been active and no funds had ever been run through it. So in my own research, with the assistance of the auditor's office, we turned out, for example, the original contracts for the original CSA 3, which was in the Point Arena area, and it shows that we did run some ambulance contracts through those. Clearly there was funding through at that time. And then the second time we utilized this was for this, I don't remember the name, but it's the Sanel Valley fire area. It was a zone of benefit. And there was a county council opinion on whether we could use the funds that we had gathered through that to pay to start the Hopland Fire District. So again, I haven't actually seen those funds, but I see there's a discussion about those funds, which would lead me to believe that there were funds running through it at that time. As far as our own board action through the years, the history is our Board of Supervisors has constantly brought this forward in terms of utilizing this, and I see as recently as 2011, which is a while now, but there was a discussion and an idea to bring the CSA 3 forward in terms of use for, I believe at that point it was for emergency services. So it's clearly been the intent of the Board of Supervisors through the years to utilize this, and that just has not happened. And so as was stated by now Commissioner McCowan, the direction is on March 12th that the executive office is to bring forward an item in terms of how we're going to put funds in this to activate this and to go forward.
Commissioners, questions of County Council?
I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Ward?
Would you then, you're recommending that we take item number 3, determine that CSA 3 does not meet the criteria of Government Code 56042, and direct staff to notify the State Controller's Office?
Correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
I guess it's just more the cart before the horse sort of deal. I mean, I get what you're doing. Would the process be more like you'd throw some money in there and maybe have the auditor look at the funds and give you a track record of what's been there and then get that back to us? Is that how you would envision us getting some follow-up on this?
Right. So again, there are very specific criteria, and one of them, and they're not an or. It's an if you have this, you're not an inactive district, and one of those criteria is if there are funds, assets available. So I think once there are, and again, running this by many other people, I think once there's assets available, we no longer meet the criteria. So of course, this commission could wait until we've actually funded that and then send in the letter that we no longer meet the criteria. I don't think, again, that even though there's a mandate, the mandate is in order to get this done efficiently and not have to go through a lengthy process. But it's really not to shut things down that want to be active. So,
Okay. Another question. So I know I would be comfortable with the fact that if we table it and then come back and then we get notified there's funds in there and if it looks sort of alive, then I think it's alive in my book, and that's how I would look at it. But then I would defer to our staff as far as what they
And
recommend.
just a note, if I could, through the chair, I have been working directly with your staff, and anything they need or any questions that they've come across, I'm always willing to work with them and answer those, so.
Commissioner Worth.
Yes, well, state law did change since you've applied funds through Service Area 3, and that basically now requires LAFCO to review each power. There was a point in time in which each service district had to notify LAFCO as to which powers they were engaged in and could show economic activity, and then we approved those powers. Any powers not so approved, they still had available to come back to LAFCO and engage in a process to show economic activity and pick up an additional power on the list of powers. And I sort of see that's the way this Service Area 3 is going to have to go through. I think it's a very simple process because you have the ability to use general funds, sales tax funds, to fund any of the powers on the list that you wish to engage. So I think it should, once we get our legal opinion, it should be a very straightforward process from that point. And I'm very pleased to see this process now. I think it's the biggest change in county governance for the public since I've been here. And I think it has a lot of potentials for benefiting the public. And I think fire services, because it applies countywide, and there are issues that need to be funded, including doing the inspections of businesses throughout the unincorporated areas of Mendocino County, which is going to become a liability if it's not done. So I think moving rapidly forward on that would be, I would definitely recommend it.
And if I could, through the chair?
Absolutely.
Just a note, and that is, again, this CSA 3 was started in Point Arena for ambulance services. However, in '85, the county, when it expanded the service area to the entire county, which that also is legal, and I've done the research on that, but in '85, they also expanded the availability of things to utilize the CSA 3. So at that time, it was a different government code. It covered a wide variety, fire, emergency, roads, all sorts of things. It's basically an attempt to give the same police powers to a county as those that are held by the cities. And so that was done, and that went through the whole LAFCO process. That code section has now changed, and there's a little more inclusive code section. So that's the next step, is looking at if anything we need to do to further go forward. So,
Commissioner McCowan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the questions of how CSA 3 would go about activating or using powers is separate from the question of whether it's active or inactive. And I do believe that simply transferring assets into CSA 3 takes it off the inactive list. I mean, that's pretty clear. I do think it's premature to send a letter because the county hasn't yet taken that action. But I do think we could give direction to staff that upon confirmation that the county has taken action to transfer funds, that our executive officer could then send a letter to the state controller's office saying that CSA 3 is no longer inactive if it ever was, and it was.
All righty, we have someone else that would like to speak, our CEO. Please
Thank you.
introduce yourself.
Thank you, Carmel Angelo, Mendocino County CEO. On March 12th, my office will be bringing forward an item on the consent calendar that we've been working with the auditor on so that we can activate the CSA 3 and fund it. And so we will be doing that on March 12th, and then the Board of Supervisors will be able to vote on that. Additionally, at the last meeting, the direction to staff was to come back to the board once we funded the CSA, basically moving money into it, but to come back to the board with options for ongoing additional revenue into the CSA 3. So I'm hoping that my office, county council, and the auditor's office, that we could get something back to the board within 60 days, 60 or 90 days. So, but again, it would be options for additional revenue, because our goal really is to use the CSA 3 to fund those areas that we think need funded, but to create an additional funding stream, not just to shift money into the CSA. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of the county?
Actually,
Commissioner?
question for Uma. So I kind of agree, like I would want to jump on if Commissioner McGowan made a motion, I'd second it, but my question would still be what our attorney would say is the best way to do it. Is that something you need to wait on, or if you had the direction you had, if you had the direction that Commissioner McGowan gave you, would that suffice, or would you want the caveat that unless our attorney says otherwise?
We can do it that way. I would feel comfortable going ahead and coordinating with the state controller's office once we receive notice from the county that there is funds available.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner McCowan?
If there are no other questions, I'd be ready to make a motion.
I thought that's what you were going to do, so that's why I was looking up and down to see if there was any other comment. Go forward, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I move that we authorize staff to notify the state controller's office that County Service Area 3 does not meet the requirements of an inactive district upon confirmation that the county has transferred assets into CSA 3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, but and it was Commissioner Ward, but I do want to make sure we have this motion correct. So when you're ready, clerk, if you please read it back for the maker of the motion and the second, and for the commission.
May I clarify, were you basing it on one of the recommendations?
Mm-hmm.
The wording, were you basing it on one of the recommendations?
Number 3. No,
On
not
number 3.
necessarily.
It's kind of a combination
Okay,
of number 1
I
and
just wanted to
number
clarify
3.
that.
But
Yeah,
I could run it by again unless,
The motion is to authorize staff to notify the state controller's office regarding County Service Area District Number 3 that it does not meet the requirements of an inactive district once they have received confirmation from the county of, and then I have a ... but I believe it
when
was.
staff has received confirmation.
We have of the funding of the CSA.
Question.
Okay, hang on, does the second agree? Maker agreed with the clerk's statement of the motion? Does the
Yes.
second agree?
Yes, yes.
It does? Yes.
I'll go first.
Well, I just was going to point out there is a member of the public here.
That's here to speak. First time I forget you. Of course, we do have a motion on the floor, but it was my error. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I know you guys are talking about Andres Avila, Anderson Valley Fire. Thank you. I know you guys are talking about things like activation, moving things forward, and I don't have much time to be here on a normal basis for you guys' meetings, but I want to bring up the point that as we move forward with the CSA Area Number 3, if you guys choose to activate it, that we went through a failed annexation, I believe 2016, about 2-3 years ago. We were moving forward to properly align our districts so that we could provide the services legally into those areas. I think this would be the appropriate time to incorporate CSA and the funding and the services that we provide in those areas and make them legal. We failed that a few years ago, and we tried to accommodate that through the AVCSD. So I think this is a great opportunity. Commissioner Orth brought up the fact of prevention. Prevention is huge these days with things like the ghost ship that came up. We're required to go through businesses and make sure that buildings are up to code and safe for our public as well as firefighters who go in. There is nobody inspecting those areas. They're on top of just the emergency services, there's the prevention services. We're needing to go out and provide adequate services to these areas and we are not doing so, and this could be the opportunity to assist both fire and EMS in that area. So just want to bring that up because of my lack of accessibility to these meetings. So thank you for your time.
Appreciate your comment. Thank you, Chief. Hang on a sec. Any other public comment? Seeing none? Commissioner?
I wonder, is it sufficient just to say we put money into the service area, or are we supposed to say what the service area's monies are for?
Okay, that's a question. County Council, what has your research showed you?
Again, Catherine Elliott, County Council. The only requirement by law is that it be funded. All of the specifications of how you use it, et cetera, will come later. But the fact of funding it means by legal definition, it is no longer an inactive district.
And you're referring to Senate Bill 448?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner?
So the motion on the floor as it stands, it triggers on the receipt of information from the Board of Supervisors Office, a confirmation, I believe is how it's worded. If there's a lack of confirmation, what happens? Are we right back to square one next month?
Why not?
So
But I'm confident the board's going to take action. The board unanimously supported the direction that the executive office return with an item. It's, and various supervisors already have purposes in mind for CSA 3. And as noted, it could be used for multiple purposes. So I have no doubt the board is going to take the action to fund CSA 3.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. It's been back to the commission, so you know what's there. Please do the roll call vote.
Commissioner McCowan?
Yes.
Commissioner Huff?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Yes.
Commissioner Orth?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we did have the other comment, and I think County Council and the CEO heard the comment of Commissioner Orth. And so that is we're waiting to hear back from our legal counsel on that particular point. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we finished with 7B, and I'm looking for the rest of my agenda that ended up getting buried here. Okay, then we're going to move on to item 7C, Special District, oh, that's right, I gave it to you. Special District Risk Management Agency Board of Directors, 2019 nominations. Staff, could you please give us a report on this item?
Thank you. We received notice from the Special District Risk Management Authority that their Board of Directors is soliciting nominations for election of 3 seats. So this is an opportunity for the Commission to put forward some nominations if they wish. The full packet of information is available from through our clerk, and you can request that if you are interested. But this is to either make a selection of candidates, or the option is to take no action.
Okay. Commissioners?
I recommend we take no action.
Further comment?
I concur.
Okay, out of a consensus, I'm not seeing other nods. All righty. Then it's consensus that we don't select nominees, that actually take item 2 on the recommendation of taking no action.
Now, if our insurance goes up next year, I'll bring it back to another vote.
Another vote. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 8, information and report items. Number 8A, work plan, current and future proposals. We had a written report.
Thank you. Just to go through it, we did receive one pre-application this past month regarding the Mendocino Coast Healthcare District detachment. It is a pre-application review which we have distributed out to the agencies that would be affected to solicit some comments up front. So we're working through that. We still have the one application on hold for the City of Ukiah and Ukiah Valley Sanitation District. And then we have two potential future projects listed here. The Anderson Valley CSD proposed activation of latent powers to provide water and sewer services. I believe they're still working through the CEQA process on that and have not submitted an application yet to LAFCO. I've also had a meeting with the the Millview County Water District, their legal counsel, general manager, and SHN engineers regarding their pre-application for the proposed annexation of Masonite properties. I received a call a couple of weeks ago and did meet with them and let them know that they could reopen their pre-application process with additional deposit to address their questions that they had that followed up on that application. And that's all I have for that item.
Okay, any questions, Commission? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
I don't believe we have received any correspondence for this last month to share.
Okay, I'm embarrassed to say, but I lost my agenda again.
And item 8C is the Executive Officer's Report.
Okay, go forward.
Just wanted to do a reminder that the 700 forms are due to our office if you have not yet submitted them. I can share that I did meet with, I had a conference call with the Mendocino Coast Healthcare District CEO and their consultants to discuss the WAGR pre-app and some of those issues that may arise on their for them. And I let them know that we had received a pre-application and would be sending that to them to solicit some formal comments from them. I also met with Lee Howard at his request, just to discuss his concerns and thoughts on issues in the Ukiah Valley in particular. Also wanted to share that Beth and I are working on a newsletter to our member agencies, and we're just doing that as we have time in the office. And the intent of that is to give an update. We finished X number of MSRs, and we have in the last fiscal year, and these next ones are upcoming, and also to share with them some of the legislative updates that affect them. Not all of them are members of the CSDA, and so some of them may not get those legislative updates, in particular the website requirements. I think that's all I have for the Executive Officer's Report.
Okay, and I don't believe we have any committee report. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Orth.
I'm waiting for commissioner reports.
Okay, I'm on to committee reports. I don't think we have any. Is that correct, staff?
We had no meetings the last month.
Thank you. Commissioners' reports. Commissioner Orth.
Yes, I would just report that the Brick Trails MSR was delayed because of a lot of changes that occurred in our district, but those changes are now behind us, and we have formed a planning committee, so we are ready and waiting to review the draft MSR and hopefully get it to a workshop soon.
Commissioner Ward.
Okay, I have two items. Number one, we received was it a draft financial statements?
Yes, a draft.
Okay, I've reviewed them. They look good. I would recommend that the commission get the financials next month and that we go ahead and pay our auditor.
Thank you.
Second item is I reviewed our legal fees for the last 12 months from January to December from our attorney, Scott Brown. There were a total of 34 hours that were billed to us. 14 hours were LAFCO client sharing, and our own hours were 20.3 hours. We paid $7,200 for that period, so if we take the total hours that he billed less the $7,200 that we paid, it's $355 an hour that we paid our attorney. For just our time, it was $208 per hour. So knowing what attorneys charge, I think $355 is pretty fair for an attorney so far. So thank you for giving me those reports, and I still think even with him sharing with the other LAFCOs, we're still in pretty good shape. When's our contract up, do you know?
It is a rolling contract, so it's until
Budget.
one of us brings it forward.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay. Seeing no other reports, so that, the suggestion from our treasurer that we have our financial on the next agenda, that would be, is it April 1st? And also, that will be the time for public hearing on our budget,
Correct.
proposed budget.
So we'll send out the preliminary budget this month with the notice of public hearing for the draft budget in April.
All righty. Cal LAFCO, Business and Ledge Report, do we have anything?
We do. On Friday, we received a request from Cal LAFCO for letters of support on 2 legislative items. One of them is AB 1253, and this is the resurrection of the grant funding bill that was proposed last year.
Right.
So this year, it is being put forward again with a funding mechanism included. It also includes a proposal for reimbursement of mandatory dissolutions. So that process has been quite costly for some LAFCOs. In particular, it has cost us some as well. So there would be an option to get some reimbursement for some of that time. So there's that one. The second one was AB 213, which has to do with restoring funding for inhabited annexations. We did support both of these last year, and we will send that to the chair, the letters to the chair for consideration for signing this year as well.
Any questions? Seeing none, I guess we're at that time. Is there any other business?
I did actually forget to, on the EO report, I wanted to share that Larkin and I will both be attending the Cal LAFCO staff workshop at the beginning of April.
Okay.
So we'll have, sorry, we should have a more full legislative update after that time.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
All righty. I have a motion. Second? Are we going to do a roll call vote or just agree? No more business. Thank you, commissioners. Meeting adjourned.
So, how many nearby neighbors would you upgrade?
I turned these papers